Now, lifeadministration.com presents the Life Administration Podcast. Here are your hosts, Leslie Loftus and Ryan Taylor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Life Administration Podcast. My name is Ryan Taylor, and with me, as always, is
Leslie Loftus. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Leslie.
How are you, Ryan?
I feel like a gargoyle on an old church.
Okay, and honestly, your shoulders are a little set.
Yeah. So I told you a little bit, but I woke up this morning with just like the most terrible back spasms.
He has no idea what he did yesterday, but one of those things you did it, and then
It's like if you slept and you had a crick in your neck when you woke up. You're like, oh, my neck feels kind of like whatever, except the crick is like someone stabbing you in the neck, and then they take the knife and they drag it down to your shoulder blade and then down to your hip. So it's and so like my back has been the past couple of years, and I might have told this story on the podcast, but I used to have to like bounce my daughter on this ball, right?
Yeah, I've told this story.
Yeah.
I remember this was bad. You were out for a while.
Yeah, and
so he used a yoga ball to bounce the baby girl,
and it popped. Yeah, and it
while
popped
he was on it.
While I was on it with her, and I have I think probably 18-month old baby, because she would have digestive issues, and that motion would really soothe her. Well, the ball pops because I was probably bouncing very aggressively or whatever, because like sometimes I'd be like, I can't believe I'm doing this again. Right. And then anyway, the ball popped, and when something like that would happen, you would normally just like, you'd put your hands down to break your fall, except that I had this little
You had
child.
your precious 18-month-old daughter.
So
in
I
your
mean,
arms, right?
I
you
just
did not put your arms down.
So I just kind of curled up in a ball, and I mean, it was probably like, I don't know, because it was up in the air. So like I went down on it and it popped, and I got like a little spring off the pop, and then I fell down. And I mean, I was hurting. I was hurting for a couple of days. And really ever since then, like if I'm laying on the floor or something like that.
It's like your injury has muscle memory.
Yeah, it's what it feels like. So it's just kind of every once in a while, like rears its ugly head. And this is one of those days. And the only thing I can think of is yesterday I picked up a box full of Chipotle. We had, our life group party yesterday. Guess who's coming to dinner? And I pulled I'm thinking it's not going to be that big of a deal. So it's on the counter. And I think I might have just like shoulder and back lifted it, because I didn't expect it to be like 80 pounds. It's just crazy.
You expected a 30-pound bag, and it was an 80-pound bag. And
But other than that, I'm good. Like I said, I haven't taken any muscles. Are you sure?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Are you sure? I mean,
Ryan was the show must go on. And also he's got a bit of a drive to get here too.
And there was an accident on the way here that made me sit in traffic and kind of tense up a little bit.
He hasn't taken any pain medicine until he gets home.
Yep. So, but we're going to go through it. And apropos, the episode that we're talking about today is one that maybe I'll be using in the very foreseeable future. And that episode name is
Going to the Doctor and Then Paying the Bill. Right.
I wish we didn't have to pay the bill.
So everybody listening has probably heard something along the lines of about the problems with U.S. medical care. Paying bills in the U.S. is more complicated than it needs to be, by a lot.
What's funny is that I have a lot of students, and I have a lot of parents that are expats or from different countries and whatnot. And so when they get here, they literally will ask me advice about what to do, because it's so different than anything else that's in most other countries.
Right. Now, and I have been an expat, and I have lived in said other countries, and I've done both systems. I prefer medical care here, hands down, not even close. The administrative bit of it, oh my gosh, it's so easy. Even when you're going to the ERs, provided that you went to the proper ER for your zip code, because there are catches to the system. You walk in, you see the doctor, all that kind of stuff. You walk in, like there's no billing, much less the hidden billing that comes along later. But so negotiating some of this stuff about the U.S. system is what we're going to talk about today, because it's not straightforward. So,
yes.
And then I have a bit of a high horse about why it's not straightforward.
Yes.
Because you know how I like the little mini history lessons.
Yes.
Okay.
Hashtag rant. Let's go. All right. Give us some backgrounds.
The threshold reason that U.S. medical care is so messed up, especially on the billing thing, is because we tie healthcare to employment. Okay. Nobody else, like, your healthcare depends, you get your healthcare from your employer. I mean, if you think about it for a second, that makes 0 sense. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And the U.S. Americans are so used to it, especially if you haven't lived abroad, that we've never considered another way because it's been going on for decades, really since the 40s.
Can I ask a question? Like, how did that happen? How did that transition?
Such a softball. Excellent.
Yeah. How did that happen?
How did that happen? Okay.
Such a softball.
Back to the New Deal.
Okay. Is it FDR?
FDR. Yes, we're in FDR. And at the time, you know how now we're talking about things like minimum wage and you want to have wage. Okay. Well, with the Depression and everything, they were talking about wage caps. So the idea was that you would cap wages specifically for management and executive positions. So you could only offer X amount of dollars for this senior management position, no matter who you were, no matter how much money you had in your company, no matter how big the job was or how small the job was, it was capped. Okay. So salary caps. So this is about the time before this era, healthcare was really palliative. You know, it was just, you know, cancer went by all sorts of other names. You kind of, once the disease or whatever got to the stage that it was visible, there was really nothing anybody could do with it but help you manage it and stuff. And medicine's starting to move into a stage where it really can be treatment. Okay. So there's suddenly a little bit more interest in getting preventative treatment. Okay, so healthcare becomes more of an idea. So companies come up with this idea, okay, well, we can only offer, let's say, $50,000. We can only offer our senior management people, and we want to woo the best talent, but all of us, you know, Exxon, Chevron, every company, Toys R Us, well, not before that, you know, get the idea. Every company is capped at $50,000. So they have to come up with other perks, you know, where you live. Okay, well, we're going to help you buy a house. So they're coming up with other things. They start to come up with the idea of let's offer them healthcare services. Okay. Makes sense. So do not get me, don't nail me down to the dates, but sometime in the 50s, that actually got codified in the Internal Revenue Code. Okay, so that now companies were allowed to deduct as if it were salary, the money that they paid for healthcare compensation. Once that tie happened, once it was, okay, well, companies will get a tax break because now, okay, so the company's paying you $50,000 and it costs them $10,000 to provide your healthcare. They get the deduction like they're paying you $60,000. Okay, so companies now start doing it because now it doesn't take long. Inertia and everything. Inertia and the tax code will do it almost every time. Healthcare became tied to employment in the U.S.
Got it. It makes sense.
So your healthcare runs with your employer. So if you are an independent contractor, like you, if you are unemployed, where do you get health? Because once, you know, all of the Exxons and the Toys R Us's, once all the Exxons and the Toys R Us's and everything, something came on the news today about Toys R Us and their bankruptcy. So it's just it's the big company in my head right now. And Exxon just got kicked off the Dow. So it's another big company in my head. Okay.
I like that there are these trends that are happening, you know, like the past 3 episodes we've talked about, like, it seems like we've talked about the stock market, you know, we talked about Exxon.
Exxon's come up a couple times. Well, now we're adding Toys R Us to the mix for poor bankruptcy reasons. But anyhow, once all of those big companies started to bundle insurance for their employees, well, then insurers started to come up with plans for the companies that were doing the bundling. So all of a sudden, kind of the individual insurance market just kind of, it gets brushed aside. It's not getting nearly as much attention. It's not the big elephant. No, I don't.
Cash cow.
It's not the big cash cow. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's not the big cash cow. So it's not what they were focused on. And so, the individual stuff kind of falls by the wayside. Well, then the individual stuff. Okay. So the government comes in and says, oh, well, then we'll work on some of this. So they come up with veterans insurance and all sorts of, and then there's the Medicares and the Medicaids for people who can't otherwise employ it. Still, you're kind of leaving independent contractors or people that are gig, but that wasn't such a big deal back in the 60s. It wasn't as common.
Right.
So you have very few people that really kind of get caught in these gaps.
Yeah.
And so even the gap fillers were geared towards bundling, collective bargaining of insurance, if you will. Now let's fast forward a couple of decades, and the price incentives in that, when you have the government paying the bill and when you are bundling things for companies, suddenly the plans aren't working really well for the individuals, which is how you get stuff like, okay, so you work at company A and you're getting ready to leave that job and go to company B.
Right.
Well, at company A, you had United Healthcare, and you had this doctor was in your network. In network meaning that is one of the doctors that your insurance with United Healthcare bought by company A will pay for. Okay. So you're now moving to company B. You've changed your job. That shouldn't affect, say, who your wife's obstetrician is.
Right.
But it does, because if your doctor is not on company B's in-network approved list, well, now you're going to be paying a whole lot more money. And sometimes that's cost per. So now you need to find a new doctor because you switched jobs.
Yep. And oh, by the way, doctors have, if you've been going to them for a long time, they know your history, they know your family history, and there's just these things that they're going to understand.
And that's in finding a doctor. Because one of the things that we can transition right now to finding a doctor, because one of the things you want that long-term relationship with your doctor.
Yeah.
You want the person that knows that you, had an allergic reaction to 10 years ago, or that you were in for a bad sinus infection. That, like, you want somebody that knows your history.
Yep.
So when you're looking for a doctor, again, my favorite thing to tell you to do is to get referrals from people who have actually either maybe have a similar health profile to you, similar age to you, who have gone, ask around.
Can I just take a step back real quick? So since the subscriber episode, so 3 episodes ago, counting this one of the themes that I have kept saying, and it just sort of came into my mind again as you were going through the history, is like, companies rarely do things just for the consumer's sake or just for the employee's sake. And so as you're looping back into this, where it's like, hey, now we've discovered that we can pay this employee $50,000, but we can give them a health insurance benefit of, an extra $10,000. And now all of a sudden we can write it off, and it sort of spirals out of control again. And so this is always, you got to remember, and this isn't like, I'm not like a conspiracy theorist where I think everyone's out to get me, but I've just been on the other side of the fence.
You need to think about what entities' motivations are, because those are actually driving
what's happening.
What motivation is, but that's what's driving what happened. And it's not necessarily, this insurance plan would be best for this individual secretary.
You're right. Exactly.
I'm sorry, that's not the approved word anymore. This administrative assistant.
Yep.
Right.
So I think you have to be mindful of that. And also when you go to get a new job, I mean, I cannot tell you, like, my job at 24 Hour Fitness when I left was I was managing the trainers, right, of all these different clubs. And so, I mean, I would have people call me and say, okay, I've qualified for health insurance, even though, because they were technically independent contractors, it was a whole thing. So I qualified for health insurance, and now we have, the company has an HMO, we have a PPO, we have right, and it just sort of spins out of control. And so the PPO was like the in-network thing. It's like you could go to this doctor, right? And I'm just trying to like explain a couple different health coverages out there.
First, tell them what HMO and
HMO stands for.
I can't remember.
Me neither.
I actually can't. Okay, I'll Google it.
Google it. So a PPO is like is like this. Okay, so PPO
Yeah,
is
we both remember what it is, but I'm like, I don't actually remember what the acronym is.
So PPO is like you basically have the freedom to go anywhere that you want to go, with the exception of, like Leslie was just talking about, you have doctors that are in network and you have doctors that are out of network.
Health maintenance organization or preferred provider organization.
Right. So you have the ability to go to someone that's out of network per se.
Right. Or whoever you want.
Yeah. But you have an increased cost if you want to go there.
Right. Because otherwise a health maintenance and an HMO and health maintenance organization has negotiated with a team or some sort of, conglomerate of doctors. And so you can only go to them because that's the ones that they've negotiated the rates with.
Exactly. Right. And so that's it. You're
for the insured, the rates are more predictable, which is why for the insured, those policies are a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
Because the insurers can better predict what their costs are going to be.
So there was HMO, there was PPO, and then lastly, there was an EPO, which is a little bit different from an HMO in the sense of usually it's just like an entity. So for like in Oregon, there's a Kaiser, right? Like Kaiser is the big thing out there. And so you can go to any sort of Kaiser associated thing and you will get stupid good rates, but you can't, it's Kaiser or it's nothing, right? There's no sort of any other kind of like company doctor.
Town. So back, again, this was part of that whole perk system, but these just didn't get codified in the IRS code the way that the health insurance did. But companies used to, let's say, they need like Tesla is getting ready to build a big campus out in Austin. Okay. Back in the day, they didn't actually go around big cities. They would go to cheap land somewhere in the desert or something like that. Basically, they would make master plan communities.
Yep.
And so I'm a big enough company. I'm going to have enough people that I need to house that I'm just going to build a town around the company itself. Yep. And so, and it kind of worked a little bit like a military base. So like you could go in to the grocery store or the general store and have the bill deducted from your pay because it was all like the company ran the town, literally.
Like a college campus that way, sort of. If you think about it that way.
Like a college campus, exactly, like that. So yes, if you were off campus, then you were on your own. Yep. There's no coverage for anything.
Right.
Whether it's, the food in the food court or
Yeah. So I just think it's important to sort of understand as like, this isn't like a health insurance episode, but I think when you're talking about, you may go find the perfect doctor for you, but then all of a sudden you realize that they're out of your network or they're not in your HMO. And so then you have to refine your search with these parameters. It's not, it can't just be, this person said this is a great doctor. They've been in practice for a long time. And I have a good, it's more than that. There are constraints that go into finding your doctor.
Correct.
That's all I wanted to say.
Correct. And those constraints get more complicated when, like I said, you're switching jobs. So you found a doctor, you've been with that doctor for 7 years. Now you're switching jobs and now you've got to do that. Like you might end up getting the insurance plan that lets you keep that doctor.
Yes.
If your company has that option.
Right.
But anyway, that's the second thing. So you ask around for the referrals. Who do you want to see? Who's good? And then the next thing you need to check is whether or not they're in. Like, are you in a PPO? Can you choose your provider? And if you're not, are they in your network?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. So
let me get back to my notes.
Yep, you're good. Sorry, I sort of took us off track there, but I just
because we were going to hit all of that. I wasn't going to hit it right there, but that's
that's why we loosely script these things sometimes. I'm like, I have something to say. Blah. So. Now we're talking about you're calling to make your appointment, right?
Well, actually, we've got two other options here too.
Okay.
Because let's say, lots of people just say, screw it to the U.S. insurance system, especially if they are young and they don't have a lot of pre-existing health problems. It's actually not that difficult to pay for your yearly or every 6 month dental visit, your yearly eye checkup. I mean, if you're just doing the general maintenance stuff and you have no health issues, lots of people choose to pay out of pocket, and they will just go to but you need to go ahead and call the doctor that you've found and that you've been recommended and that you like. Find out if they're willing to do that.
Yep.
There are other services.
Sometimes it'll be even cheaper if you pay in cash.
Yes. Sometimes
Just
it will.
saying.
Yes. I've even heard of situations where, especially with old, country doctors, not old, I meant old style country doctors. They'll barter.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it still happens.
Yeah.
It still happens. Now, this is just for your basic, I need my yearly checkup. I need my teeth cleaned every 6 months. By the way, the whole teeth cleaning every 6 months thing, that's an insurance thing. You can go every 3 months. You could go every year if you want. I wouldn't recommend going less than every year. But, you get the idea. Mm-hmm. That's because companies negotiated for an every 6 month and it became industry norm.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not so sure it became industry norm because the dentist wanted it that way or what. Okay. But you can find a doctor that does just straight up regular business. Mm-hmm. There's also concierge services. So think of these as private networks. So the doctors have, basically you've paid the doctor a flat fee. So you pay them like a subscription fee for a year. And it's going to be a decent fee.
It's a chunk.
It's a chunk.
Yep.
But it covers but then it's now like your own little private universal health coverage thing, because that doctor will then they'll do whatever you need. And I think there are probably some, so if you're in some sort of catastrophic car accident, when you have to go to the hospital, well, obviously that doctor probably is a primary care doctor and maybe not surgically trained. You're going to have another surgery. Right. So it's not that you would never bust through, but all of your basic health needs, if you're going to that doctor, are covered with the yearly fee that you pay to them.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Gotcha.
And then it's also, those are really nice because then you also know you're getting the same doctor each time. They also tend to have really great, you get their pager a lot. Oh, pagers. Do y'all even know what pagers are?
Hello?
Yeah.
2020?
Yes. Okay. You get the doctor less often than you get the answering service,
right.
Because those doctors also tend to control their practice size. So they might charge a higher fee and have a smaller service, but that means that they're more available to really give you the attention. All of these options are out there. Most people don't know that you don't necessarily have to be on the insurance system. Yeah. And honestly, we could solve a whole lot of the American insurance system if we would offer catastrophic coverage. So for the under 25 set, just say that they have to have catastrophic coverage the way, say, we make in Texas, you have to have liability auto insurance. Right. So if you hit somebody else, you don't have to have insurance to cover your car, but you do have to have insurance to cover their car so you don't leave the person that you wronged in the lurch. Right? Okay, we could do the same thing. We could require catastrophic coverage. So, all of your basic dentist appointments, eye appointments.
Yeah, that's on you.
Right, that's on you. But you can also budget for that because you know what it's going to cost you to go to the gynecologist. You know what it's going to cost you to go to the dentist and stuff. And you do these things about once a year, and you can budget for it and fine. But then if you're in a car accident, catastrophic loss, then that's covered 100% because you've got catastrophic insurance. Obviously, as you get older, as you're getting into childbearing years and, more health problems come up, you would want to switch from a catastrophic plan to, regular healthcare plan.
Because you'd be falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. Because you lift the box at Chipotle and
the bring back cut me deep.
Exactly. And suddenly you need, Vicodin.
Hello?
But goodness gracious, a lot of the other under 25 set would totally take advantage of cheap catastrophic coverage.
I know I would have. When I was working this Hollywood video years, and I had really good health coverage, but I never used it. Right. I mean, I went to the doctor once a year. I did
because you were 23. I mean, you had to go to the eye doctor. You probably Yeah, you use the eye doctor coverage.
I think that was it. I was like, I need some new glasses, and even that that was like the worst part of it. It was like, we cover 30% of these glasses, and that's it. No, it's just the frames, the lenses you have to pay for. Like, it was something stupid like that. But in any case, the other facets were really good, but I just never used it. Right. So I think that's.
But you would use them now.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
If I wasn't an independent contractor, my butt would be shutting that camera off when we were done, and I would be heading to the doctor. Instead, I'm going to be going home and heading to the heating pad and just like hopefully trying to roll it out or something, which in some ways is good.
And I've had lots of friends too. Same thing when you're in between jobs, when you're switching. Gosh, all of this is a pain.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
can I speak to can I speak to independent contractors just for 1 second? So if you are on the gig style of
which
income,
is much more prevalent now than
especially
it was
to the group that
ago.
we're speaking to.
Yes.
If you've never done it before, because usually like if you're in college, you're kind of like covered till you're 22, 23, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because usually you can get some sort of university coverage. Most schools offer something like that that's similar to employment coverage.
Yep, and also, like, it'll be if you're in school full time, maybe your parents' coverage still kind of kicks over, even if you're over 18. But the marketplace, that is right. It's tough, right?
I've in the time that I've known Ryan, we're like 6 years or so. You've had to hit the market. I've heard lots of stories about the marketplace.
And it changes, right? So you have to know that. But my advice is that you can sort of do what Leslie, and I wish that I had discovered this earlier, because I came from a place of fear, right? And I don't know a lot about insurance, but I'm just saying for the general population, I would say you go in there, get yourself the bare minimum, right? They typically break the plans into bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. If you're shopping anything but the bronze tier, like, just don't. You're paying too much.
Again, we're talking to the young gig people.
Yeah. Exactly. Like
unless you have pre-existing health, I don't know, you're diabetic or something.
Yeah.
That's different.
Totally.
That's
and
different.
I'm just talking to like your I use the term
24-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect way to say it. Is that just go into the bronze, get something that is like, if you're in a car accident, you have some kind of coverage. And granted, it's not going to be great, but you're sort of playing the odds. That's what insurance is anyway.
That's what it is.
So just kind of know that going into it, and also realize that every year, and you should get emails and stuff, but sometimes you don't, but every year you have to go and change it. And now's a really good time to start researching, because open enrollment will be starting in, I think, 6 weeks from now.
Right. It's usually open enrollment for, by the way, when we're saying the marketplace, this is capital M marketplace. We're talking about the Obamacare
marketplace.gov.
Exactly. Open enrollments October, November. Usually the deadline to be done is like December 10th or something like that.
Yeah, between December 10th and the 15th, depending on like how the calendar falls.
Right.
You have basically 2 months to get it dialed in.
Right. And so go back to the episode about to-do lists. And if you haven't already added it on your to-do list for September 25th or October 1st, pick something right around in that range. Yep. Tell yourself to review your insurance.
And speaking from experience, this is like a day one that they open, day 3, like you want to be doing it there, because when you get to 2 weeks left, 1 week left, and you have a question, or good luck to you, because honestly, I have spent more time trying just to get the website to work. Like, it just crashes just because there's so many people on it. So that was my 30-second commercial break there. I just wanted to throw that out.
There you go. No problem.
Cool.
All right. So let's say you've gotten through all of this. You've found a doc in network, or you're doing the concierge thing, whatever it is.
Whatever you've decided to do.
Call to make the appointment. And most doctors these days do have online, you can make an appointment online. I recommend calling, because one of the things you're doing, especially the first couple of visits, is you were not only the doctor, but the doctor's front office. Okay, quick story. I have a disorder that I've had for 15 years or so. And so I've had the same doctor the whole time from original diagnosis now. Love her. Which says something, because I put up with it's much better. It got solved about 8 or so years ago. But the first couple of years, working with her office staff, they were nice. They weren't rude called the wrong pharmacy, gave the right, just an absolute mess. I spent more time dealing with, you gave me the wrong dose, or sent it to the pharmacy that I once used when I was living in Austin, but now I live in Houston, and I have lived in Houston for 3 years. Like, it's not just, a quick, right?
This wasn't last week we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So you're test driving the administrative staff as much as you were test driving the doctor. Now, the doctor is the bigger deal in that, but if the doctor doesn't have a great administrative staff, well, probably she wants to know.
Right.
The doctor would like to know if her staff is not,
because they're usually pretty disconnected from that because they're dealing with patients.
Right. And which is what you want them to be.
Right.
Right. So anyhow, yes, do go ahead, do things manually the first couple of times, call.
Yeah.
Talk to the people in the front of the office to set up your appointment. See how crazy, because all doctors have the press 1, press 2, those kind of buttons. How, annoying is it? How difficult is it to navigate? Because the goal here is to have a doctor that you're with for 20 plus years, right? So you're going to be calling the doctor, for at least once a year, probably 2 or 3 times a year, at minimum for the next 20 years. Yeah. If the staff annoys you, it's going to be an issue.
Yep. Absolutely. Definitely. And also, I think when you're making that first appointment, a lot of doctors now, like it used to be, you go to your first appointment and then you spend 20 minutes filling out paperwork in the waiting room before you even actually get in. And a lot of times those forms will be like online at their website.
And fill out those online.
Those online. So make the call in person, fill out the forms online so you show up and you're ready to go because,
And there'll be a significant number of that, especially for your first time. And you kind of want that too because you'd like for the doctor to get a thorough history,
right?
Especially when you're first coming on.
Yeah, and especially like if you're going through your family's history and all of a sudden you're like, and I think Aunt Matilda had this thing that, and then you got to call, you're in the waiting room and you got to call your mom or your dad and they don't pick up. And so you guess or they do, or let me call you back. So just like,
and it turned out Aunt Matilda had, genetic valve problems.
Right.
It's the kind of thing your doctor would like to know.
Exactly. And so you want to make sure that you're thorough on those forms and you don't want to be doing it in the 20 minutes beforehand, filling out your forms. And then, the receptionist is like knocking on the glass. Hey, can I have your form? Can I have your form? Right. And you just start pencil whipping
most of you will have a medical history from your other doctor.
Yes.
So you need to get them transferred. That's easier now than it used to be. It's still not, it's not a matter of calling up your first doctor and saying, hey, fax, listen to me.
Yeah.
Okay, that should give you an indication right now of exactly how old this system, because I'm not saying fax because I'm just remembering things. Doctors still use faxes in part because privacy laws require. Don't get me started. We're not going to go on a fax rant. I've written about that. I'll actually put it down in the show notes.
Do it.
I have, because the fax thing. Right. But getting your medical history transferred, you have to sign releases to get it transferred over. They can eventually there's sometimes fees associated with it. Sometimes they actually require you to come physically pick up the big old file. And let's say this was your pediatrician that you had from 0 to 18, and now you're going, and then you have the doctor from college, and now you're going to your real doctor that you're going to have. It might be a big fat file.
That file will probably throw your back out.
Yeah, that file might throw your back out. Right. But there's, depending on how technically savvy each of the doctor's offices are, you might actually have to physically go pick it up or have it mailed to your parents because they're the address on right. It's not as simple as it sounds. Transferring your medical history can be difficult. Sometimes they've got it set up. Oh gosh, well, y'all are in the Methodist hospital system too. Yep. No problem. And they click 2 buttons and it's done.
Bam. Yep. Yeah. But
don't rely on that.
Yeah, don't rely on that.
Don't rely on that.
Okay, so then when you're on the phone, we're talking about parking.
Right.
Right.
Right. Well, you need to remember, they're going to ask you for your insurance information too. So you're going to need to go through that whole rigmarole when you're setting it up. And then also ask about things like doctors' offices are often in buildings that, especially in urban areas, may or may not have a lot of parking or are in big parking garages. there's one doctor that I've gone to that it takes 20 minutes to park.
And then 20 minutes to walk from the parking structure to the actual office.
Exactly. So you get there 10 minutes, but you get to the building 10 minutes before your appointment.
I'm feeling good.
But you had no idea it was going to take you 30 minutes to get into the actual office, right?
Or you go into the building and it's like your doctor's on floor 6 and you go on floor 4 because like you read the sign wrong, and it's like, all of a sudden you're in the labyrinth of offices.
Tall buildings might have the different banks. And so you get into the wrong bank. And so you go up to floor 6 realizing, I can't get floor 12.
Got to go back down to the skywalk. Right. So like that happens. Like I know it almost sounds ridiculous, like when you're talking about it, like I really need to call and ask.
But it does happen at doctors' offices all the time.
It does happen.
Dentists and eye doctors, not so much.
Yep.
Obstetricians. I'm sorry. Because obstetrician offices are often right next to hospitals. And a lot of this stuff has to do with because they need to be able to get gurneys through hospitals. So there's all sorts of like wide back hallways. They're very space hungry. So parking becomes but they're also all smashed together so that the buildings can be. This causes a lot of logistical issues that are very life administration in thing. But yeah, you need to know how long is it going to take you to park.
Yep, definitely. And I want to I'm looking through the notes here, and I think that this isn't because this is something that we do if we're making the decisions, because sometimes it's better for us to pay cash instead of using our insurance that we have. But ask them how you can make payments. So, some places will let you, some doctors will be like, oh yeah, we have, you can pay $50 a month for the next 6 months, and that's totally fine. We automatically deduct it from your card, and that's great. So just understand, like if you're working on a budget or you're in the gig space, like it's not set in stone, but I think a good time to find that stuff out, because that matters, is on that first phone call.
Ask them about their payment procedures.
I was hanging loose there. It's like I had 2 phones. Like
you did. You're totally hanging loose. And if you are on insurance, sometimes they'll have you pay the copay, which the copay for those of you. So let's say you have a really great insurance plan. They still will charge you usually a minimum, let's say $25 for a visit. So it's called the copay. Also, you might need to pay for your whole. Again, this depends on your insurance. Told you this was confusing. So let's say you have an insurance plan that covers up to $100,000 with a $1,000 deductible, and you're making an appointment at your eye doctor in February. You might have to cover the whole cost of that appointment because you haven't paid your $1,000 deductible. Now, by March, I'm just throwing these out. By March, between the dentist and the and I should probably also clarify that sometimes dental plans and eye plans are supplemental to health insurance.
Separate,
yeah, exactly. Sometimes they're separate. Okay, so let's just say
your results may vary.
Yes, your results may vary. You're a family of 4, and so by March, all 4 of you have been to your regular doctor checkup. So now you've probably met your deductible between that and prescriptions and stuff. So now you just have a copay for anyone, or they might cover the whole. Again, it depends on your insurance and if they cover the whole visit or if they cover a copay. But some doctor's offices want you to pay whatever it is you owe as you check into the doctor's office. And some will have you pay as you check out.
Yep.
That's kind of just how different offices are run.
Okay. So that's good. Do we feel like we covered all the pre-appointment stuff?
I think we've covered all the pre-appointment stuff.
Okay. So now we're in to the appointment. We're going in. Scary bananas. New
Scary
doctor.
bananas. Do I have to have a shot? Exactly.
All right. Go ahead. Take it away. Okay. First visit.
First visit. Remember, this is much an interview. You're test driving the doctor. You don't know much about this doctor until you actually interact with them, which is also why even in this day and age with COVID and stuff like that, and we have made great strides in doing online virtual visits. And for some things, that's just fine. But other things like, I have this wart or something, you need to go to the dermatologist. They need to actually see it. Right. So dentist, you can't really do a virtual dentist appointment. Right. But regardless, first visits should be do the real thing and test drive the doctor. Remember, a long-term relationship is your goal.
Yep. Yeah. This is not, you don't have to commit. And it can be frustrating, right? Because you do all of this work that we just talked about. You know, we're getting files sent over. We've called about payment information. We know about the parking, and you're like, okay, like that part's pretty manageable, but you could get in there. And I like doctors that are sort of light and funny and don't take themselves too seriously. And it's been in my experience that they are few and far between. And so if you're not feeling good about the relationship, you got to break off, right? We talked about it in banking last time, is that, you know, if it doesn't feel good, you got to move on. And I think the same thing applies here.
Especially here, because I mean, with the banker, you know, they're dealing with all your money and all your funds, and they might know a fair bit of your personal business. Nothing compared to what the doctor should know, because frankly, if you're withholding information from your doctor, you're jeopardizing your health, right? So you're going to be talking to your doctor about a lot of stuff over the years that you wouldn't talk to anybody else about. You need to feel comfortable with, and Ryan's correct. There's doctors as a stereotype and as a whole, as a generalization, tend to be very just the facts, ma'am kind of people, you know, and it's not necessarily because they're cold or they're just getting, you know, they've got tons of information coming in. They're paying attention to things about, say, your gait or the color of your skin or the color of your fingernails. If they're not painted and they can see them. They're paying attention to all of that. And to us, non-doctors, sometimes it looks like detachment, like
just talk to me, man.
Right, exactly. Or they're also, you know, you're starting to tell a story, but then the doctor hears one little bit right there that actually, and then they cut you off because they want to get into this bit, and to you, they just cut me off. Okay. You're going to need to figure out what you are comfortable, because really it's about what you're comfortable with. If you need more, of the conversational bits and stuff like that, well, then great. Look for that. There's nothing wrong for looking for that. And also, if they are routinely dismissive of details that you try to tell them, bad sign.
And especially, like, I think that don't underestimate your own sort of knowledge. Now, I'm not saying go on WebMD and diagnose yourself and that sort of stuff.
Say, no, doctor, I know it's this.
No.
Yeah, you got your, MD by Google.
Yeah, right. But, if you go to an eye doctor, and this just happened to me recently, you go to an eye doctor and you say, hey, I think this prescription that you gave me isn't right. I have had an astigmatism in my right eye since I was 14 years old. And all of a sudden, now at almost 40, you're telling me like you don't see it. And then I put your contacts on that you gave me and I can't see correctly. And then I go back to that eye doctor and say, hey, I can't see, right? I can't see. And they tell me you don't have an astigmatism. Well, at that point, like, I don't need WebMD to say, well, I had multiple eye doctors at this point. It's all been the same. Dude, I'm out. I'm done.
And it would have been different if the contacts that he'd given you worked. And you're like, oh my God. Right. Exactly. But
amazing.
They didn't.
They didn't. So you've had evidence, and now you just compounded evidence of kind of against himself or herself, right? So you trust yourself in that area, right? If I go to a doctor, a new doctor, and I'm like, hey man, I was born with 6 bones missing in each foot. I have foot pain. And he says, well, walk differently. I'm going to tell him to kick bricks. It's just like that. No, there's a problem here that has to be accounted for. So you know yourself, and don't be afraid to push on those things that for a fact.
Right. But then also, like he said, don't go in there with an MD by Google and just think that
Yeah, everything. If you're going in there with like a diagnosis and that's definitely doc, I'm telling you, I was on WebMD before I came here. I'm telling you, it's definitely this. That's not the approach, because I would, if I was the doctor, I'd be like, great, another person telling me how to do my job. Why did you even come in today? You know? Yeah, exactly.
I actually know at least one doctor that chose a profession or chose a specialty specifically to avoid those types of patients. Right. Yep.
Definitely. Got to do it. Okay. So then our next point, we're wrapped up there, is be honest and forthcoming.
Yes.
Can I say something? Because I've been waiting to say this since I read the show notes. There is an amazing television show called House MD that went for like 8 seasons.
Love House.
And I'm telling you, that show would have been terrible if it wasn't for one thing that he would always say: patients lie.
Yep. When I wrote that Be Forthcoming, I actually had a house in my mind.
Yeah. He would say it: patients lie. You know?
Right. And at least a third, maybe half of the episodes were solved by, so he's a master diagnostician. So like the really complicated cases that you can't figure out, and it's just so many weird things. And so they try to suss it out and figure it out. So many cases they would finally figure out when they got the real information from the patient.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And so listen, and Lauren, I love you. I just want to preface that.
All right, let's go, everybody. How many times does he preface some comment?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Okay.
But my wife sometimes won't want to show her hand to the doctor all the way.
Like show her injured hand, or
just like give all the information because she thinks that they don't need it because, she knows that like it, whatever that was that she doesn't want to disclose, like it has nothing to do with what the actual issue is. Right. And okay, so this is a law protected relationship, right?
Absolutely.
Leslie?
Absolutely. It's one of the stronger ones.
Right. So it's not like you're
attorneys, priests, doctors.
Right. So it's not like you're going to go in there and the doctor is going to be like, so do you do drugs? And you're like, actually, doc, on the weekend, I'm, just crushing half a line of cocaine every 6 hours.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, granted, that's obviously not good.
Right.
And you shouldn't be doing that. But if you
your
are in
doctor
fact
needs
doing
to do it. Your doctor needs to know it. Sorry.
If you are in fact doing that, then you need to tell them. And guess what? When you leave the doctor's office, the cops aren't going to come knocking on your door being like, well, we heard at the doctor that no, you got to give them all
of those confidential information. All of those confidential relationships, as a practical matter, the only way that docs can break them is you're like, well, I'm going to go home and I'm going to beat up my 6-year-old kid because I'm in a rage right now and you won't give me the rage medicines that I want. Yeah, the doctor has to report that.
Right. That's different.
You will have the cop show up at your door there.
Yeah.
If you are in the process of commissioning or if they have figured out that you are abusing a child, those are mandatory report things. If you're actively endangering somebody else committing a crime. But no, if it's, I have a history of doing heroin. They're not reporting that. But they need to know that because heroin interacts with so much stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, one of the weirdest things, there's a line of blood pressure medicines that interact with grapefruit juice.
Right.
Dude, so yes, the doctor needs to, whether or not I just have my normal breakfast, just ham, eggs, and orange juice. Orange juice? Well, actually, it's orange grapefruit juice. That's relevant. Yeah, exactly. That's relevant to them.
That's good.
So now, and
go ahead.
One more thing, because interesting that you brought up Lauren, and for some reason, it is. I think I've never seen any solid research on this, but anecdotally, I've never heard guys talk about this problem. Women, it doesn't matter if it's a female doc or a male doc either. Women occasionally, let's go with occasionally. Women occasionally hold back information. Either they're embarrassed, they don't want to say, they're more hesitant to give all of the relevant information.
Yep.
This comes up particularly in postpartum stuff. So they don't want to say, hey, after that vaginal delivery, I have been incontinent for, oh gosh, there was one article in, it wasn't Vogue, but it was, maybe Cosmo, something like that. Anyway, the woman had gotten to the point where she was both urine and bowel incontinent for like 8 years. Like she'd stopped running, and she was because the first doc, right at her postpartum appointment, she was too, the doctor was too quick or something, so she didn't get a chance to mention it, she felt like. And then after that, it got much worse very quickly, and so she was too embarrassed to say. So she lived in diapers for 8 years before she finally was willing to tell a doctor. And it's a surgical fix, because she had, like I said, maybe I'll try to find the article again. It was like a Cosmo. It was one of the girl magazines.
Yeah.
But Yeah. Don't be afraid to tell your doctor information.
No. You just don't be one of house's patients. Don't be lie. Don't leave things out. Just be straight. That's between you and the doctor. And then in your notes you say,
and also with let's say other people are with you, you can kick anybody out.
Absolutely.
I mean, and honestly, my kids have gotten to the teenager phase, and the pediatrician routinely asks me, not because they want honest answers from the kids, and the kids are more likely to give them honest answers if mom or dad is not in the room.
Correct.
And the doctors need the honest answers.
And parents, if you're listening, just like you got to respect that too, right? Like you can help in this process by not, putting a scene up or something like that. Just, hey, you know what? Maybe even before you go to the appointment, do you want me to come in there with you?
Right.
If they, I got it. Cool. Sit in the waiting room. And
if you're not comfortable with the doctor, you don't think the doctor would give your child good advice or whatever, well, then you need a different doctor.
then you're at the wrong doctor.
You're at the wrong doctor. Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. But yeah, I mean, there comes a stage when, even though legally for my teenage children, I could be in the room. Nope.
Yep. Definitely. And so even if the doctor, right, so we talked about earlier, kind of want like a good bedside manner, for lack of a better term, for a doctor. But even if you don't have, like, that's not important to you, whatever, you gotta give them the information, even if they're quick, even if they're short, you lead that conversation if you have to.
Yeah. And if you're routinely having to, beat the information or beat through the conversation to get the information out there. Yeah. Yep. Sign maybe to look for somebody else, but otherwise be forthcoming.
Yep. Be forthcoming.
And also you will find, because it is a relationship. So the first couple of times it feels a little awkward.
Yep.
After that, the doctor that I was talking about before that I don't want to leave, even when she had the staff at the beginning, like I said, that's gotten fixed. She walks in and we just start talking.
Right.
I mean, because now it's been 15 plus years.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. They've seen a lot in your life transpire.
Right.
Okay.
Post-visit billing.
Hit it.
Okay.
I got like 8 minutes.
Okay. I can hit it quick. For your routine visits, as we discussed before, it's probably pretty easy. There may be a copay, maybe not a copay. Okay. Post-visit doctor billing gets more complicated when you have, you needed to go to the hospital, you needed to go to the ER, when there's a chance that you were out of network. And that's usually what expats and everybody else are complaining, because that's a nightmare. Because you'll get, let's say you were in a trampoline accident. Sorry, my children did get into a trampoline accident a couple of years ago. It wasn't that bad, but we had to go to the ER check for a concussion and a broken arm. Neither one. Well, we might have had a mild concussion. Anyway, I told you I was going to be fast, and I am so not being fast.
No, you're good.
Okay. So over the course of that visit, they see a couple of different doctors. It's sent, tests are sent to different imaging labs or different, blood work labs, or some of those may be in network and some of those may be out of network. So let's just say it gets real. Let's say you're in February, so you haven't met your deductible yet. So now the insurance is going to, you've gone to the doctor, you've gone to the ER, it's 6 weeks later, and now you get a bill from your insurance that's the rest of your deductible for the year because that visit did it. And 3 of those doctors and 1 of those meds was covered by your insurance, but the lab that they sent the x-rays to, or the lab doctor that read the x-rays, is not in network. So you have to pay the full bill of that person. Oh, let's add another layer. Sometimes those entities will bill separately and later.
Yes.
So you'll get a bill from your insurance saying you need to pay us this because, we covered it, but now you owe us this for the deductible and the extras on, because some insurances maybe will cover 80% of your medical bill. So you owe us the 20 for, it was a $10,000 visit. I'm just throwing that number out there. So you owe us 2. But now that the x-ray technician that wasn't in network, they bill you separately later. So you think you've done all the billing from all of this stuff, and 2 weeks later you get another bill, which is the hourly rate for that doctor and the imaging equipment that they used, and you're like, what in the... Yeah, now let's say that you were in a car accident and it was a week-long stay. The bills are awfully hard to figure out. But that's where it's all coming from.
Yeah,
that's
so
how it all kind of
and you got to know that, and
you have to know that, because otherwise you're like, what? And especially if you were an expat and you came from one of these countries that you walk into the ER, you walk out of the ER, and you don't deal with anything. Heck, you don't even realize the taxes that you're paying to support it, because they're mostly supported by a VAT tax, which is a value-added tax. So like if I go to buy something for $20, the tax is already in the $20. The thing actually costs $18.05.
Right.
But I paid, but I didn't even see myself pay the tax. Like that's how easy. And so it really does feel like you just walked into the ER and you walked out and it was all paid for. You didn't have to do anything. And then you come to our system and, dear, you can't even keep straight. What do you mean I'm paying for this but not for this? Aren't they the same thing? No.
Networks matter. And a lot of times you might be able to preempt that too. And just, if you're just making sure that, hey, is my insurance covering that? That might be the normal guy. That might be the normal x-ray technician that they use. Right. But however, he's not covered. You might be able to say, well, can you send it to this lab because, my insurance covers that. You sometimes can get ahead, not every time, but again, this is sort of like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure type of situation. So you want to be vocal and say, hey, I'm with United or I'm with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so like they need to go to these kinds of places. Right. Sometimes
and they're totally used to that, especially if you're talking things like ERs. They're totally used to that. They know which. They're well used to dealing with who's in. They should know,
but they're only human, and sometimes those things get crazy, especially now the environment that we're in. I'm sure that there are more mistakes just because of the volume, right?
And you've probably seen on Facebook lots of people running into these kind of problems when they're going to get tested.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Definitely.
So, shoot, I got tested by an entity that wasn't in my network, did it?
Yep. And then bam, $400 later.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything else in closing?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Definitely send questions if you have them, because paying for medical care in the U.S. is not straightforward.
No,
it should be, but it's not.
It's not. And do your research. Be forthcoming. Don't lie. And make sure you call about parking.
I'm sorry, it's a dumb thing.
No, I know it's not. It's true.
But it's true.
I can think of multiple
really spend
occasions.
30 minutes parking.
Yeah. I thought about multiple occasions. Okay, cool. Let's wrap it up. If you're listening to us on Google Play, Spotify, Apple Music, which I think is going to become Apple Podcasts pretty soon.
Oh, cool.
It's very exciting.
Might have become.
Yes.
Okay.
Please consider giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a comment. Let us know what you thought about the episode. If you are watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button, leave a comment, and hit that like button. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan Tailon, RyanTailon. Leslie?
And I'm Leslie Loftus Text, TX, on Twitter. And then I put up show notes and stuff on the website and at Pinterest. And I will see you there. Oh, and then also feel free to email me at Leslie@Life Administration.
Yes, Ryan at Life Administration as well. Lifeadministration.com is the website. We have curated courses on there, which we're going to be adding to next week, which is good. We're going to be kind of refreshing that. So be sure and to check that out. If you subscribe recently, thank you so much for checking out the website. You get all the content at the very latest. It seems like we're getting every week, we're getting new and more subscribers, which is really cool. Very exciting. Otherwise, I have been Ryan.
I have been Leslie.
You have been awesome. We'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.